Hi there, my name is Leanne Maciel. I'm with Poets and Quants, and I am very excited to be with a group of online MBAs and to close out the final online MBA event of the year for Poets and Quants. So we really appreciate all of you being with us and taking the time to talk with us about your MBA experience. And we're really going to cover the journey in the next 45 minutes. So the decision to start, to the decision which program to go to, and as well as learning about the experience and how it's been able to impact your career. So to get started, I would love to just start to get to know each of you a little bit. So I'm going to ask each of you to share who you are, your current industry, company, and what you do for the company. And then just to round that out with a fun fact about yourself. So Marissa, we'll start with you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Marissa Bielecki. I am an online MBA at Michigan Ross. I'll be graduating this May 2022. So very excited to have my MBA finally and also have some free time back in my life. My entire background is in marketing and communications. About 3/4 of my career I've spent in the nonprofit association world, and the other quarter I've spent in the restaurant and hospitality industry. Currently, I'm with AARP, and I'm a marketing manager in our for-profit subsidiary. So I work with a number of financial partners we have, ranging from Goldman Sachs to Coldwell Banker, to bring different products and services to our members. Oh, and a fun fact about myself. Years ago, I decided to take on the challenge of doing a half marathon. Thought I would do one and done, but this Saturday I will be doing my 9th.
Wow, congratulations.
Thanks, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Salesh.
That's it.
Perfect.
So my name is Shailesh Gangoli. I was a Flex MBA student at Lehigh University. I graduated in May of 2021. So I saw the whole COVID transition through COVID during my program. I've been at Air Products in the industrial gases business. So basically we supply oxygen, nitrogen, argon, and so on to our industrial customers. I've been with the company for 14 years. I started out as a research engineer, a product developer, but then pivoted into business improvement and business management. Essentially, I made a technical to commercial pivot as a part of my career. I now manage the global relationship of our company with one of our largest strategic customers.
Great. And a fun fact.
Yes, and a fun fact. I'm an avid cricketer. And the first time when I came here to the United States as a grad student, participating in a mechanical engineering versus chemical engineering softball tournament, I hit the ball and then ran straight to the pitcher with the bat in my hand.
That is a great fun fact. I think that might take the cake for the day. Great. Thank you very much for joining us. And Chase, let's hear a little bit about yourself.
Of course. My name is Chase Clara. I've spent the last roughly 10 years in the digital healthcare space, primarily with early stage startups. Currently right now at a startup called Deep 6 AI, which helps to facilitate clinical trials by finding highly precision matched clinical trial patients for those trials. I'm currently the senior director of customer success. So I get the fun job of actually working with our customers, making sure they're seeing value and all that kind of stuff. Fun fact about myself, I'm a new dad. I have an 8-week-old son, my first son. So it's been exciting and challenging to navigate full-time work and the online program and learning how to be a dad. So yeah.
Well, congratulations and
thank you.
Well, we might start with you once we start to talk about work-life balance later on in the conversation.
Perfect.
Well, great. Very nice to have all of you with us again. So let's get into talking about the online MBA. So if you think back to when you started the process, I would love to understand what led you to an online MBA. Did you consider a full-time program, perhaps a part-time program? Really would like you to kind of talk us through that process. So we'll go the other way this time. Chase, would you like to share that process?
Yeah, the process was easy for me. I knew that I wasn't going to stop working. I love work, but I wanted to. I wanted the MBA. I had talked about it for years, and to be honest, the pandemic actually kind of played a role in me making this decision, because it was like, if not now, then I'll never do it. And so for me, it was 100% always going to be online. I needed the flexibility, whether it be, would I be traveling for work? Would I be, working full time? Like, there were so many just like things up in the air that I just needed that flexibility while still knowing that I was going to get a great education.
Right. Okay. Shailesh?
Okay. So for me, the motivation to do an MBA started out with my desire to, as my career journey went from technical to business, really to structure a lot of my knowledge that I'd gained over the years, but not quite had the structure that that would have enabled me to be successful in a business career. So that really motivated me to go and get the MBA. Specifically, the online program was interesting. The Flex program at Lehigh actually is really good. You can go in class or stay online. It's your choice. So you can benefit from the the balance of both if you'd like. And as Chase said, I was traveling a bunch for my work, and I honestly couldn't afford to do a full time. Couldn't afford to leave work and do full time. So the online and Flex MBA was the right answer for me.
Great, thank you. And Marissa?
So similarly, I did not consider a full-time program. I had been working for about 9 years when I started the MBA, and it just didn't make sense career-wise where I was, or financial sense, to leave the workforce for 2 years and go back to school full-time. So I was I was set on a part-time program from the beginning. I wanted to get my MBA because I wanted skills and knowledge that I couldn't necessarily get from just more years of work experience. I wanted to understand a business more holistically rather than just from my narrow marketing perspective. I did actually start out thinking I wanted to be in an in-person program. I was pretty dead set on wanting to be in a real classroom. And then through some conversations with friends and my boss at the time, I realized I was severely limiting my options and my flexibility in life. So that was when I kind of brought in my search to online programs.
Great. And we'll stay with you, Marissa. You mentioned, a few of you mentioned the cost associated. How did you decide that an MBA was worth the investment, or how did you think about the ROI, in general? Can you talk us through that?
Sure. So I think the answer is twofold. You can certainly tap into the quant side and crunch the numbers, and you can read all the Wall Street Journal articles that tell you out of most advanced degrees, you're going to see a return on your investment with an MBA, whether it's a higher salary, a signing bonus, all of that. We actually did that in my intro finance class at Ross. So I have the spreadsheets to show I should see the return on my MBA when all is said and done. But I think the other side to the answer of that question is one that's more personal and frankly a little bit emotional. It's been totally worth it for me so far, in that I have a network and a community that I would not have otherwise, both with my individual cohort that I came into the program with, and then just the broader Michigan and broader Ross community. I love wherever I go. When I travel, I usually wear Michigan stuff, and I love, wherever I go, even on a flight to Madrid, I'm guaranteed to get at least one Go Blue. So it's nice to be part of that community and that network, and strengthen other skills that you may not necessarily get to practice in your current role. So I certainly think it was a worthy investment. A little biased, but.
Not at all. Well, what about the two of you gentlemen? How did you think about the investment that you were undertaking and the ROI?
I mean, for me personally, because I was trying to make the career pivot into business, I actually went about and, spoke to a lot of my colleagues who had gone through the MBA program in the past while they were working. And almost all of them just swore by the value it created, for them and for the jobs that they were doing at the time and even future jobs, right? So that really motivated me to kind of go and get the MBA. What I'll say is that, to be honest, I mean, after having gone through the program, the amount I learned, I honestly couldn't quantify it in ROI. It's like you're a plant. When you're growing, what's the ROI on sunshine, right? There is no ROI. So it's abundant, and you can make it what you want it to be. All the learnings that you get from the MBA. And one of the things is that I'll tell you, as an being a student in the past, an undergrad, what I can tell you is that, learning after you've gone to work and come back from work, the amount of absorption and application that happens when you learn when you're at work, learning in a program, like an educational program while you're at work, is almost like 4 times or 10 times as much as when I was, let's say, an undergrad, right? I mean, so there's a natural, better efficiency of what you're learning and applying that to what you do.
Right. ROI of sunshine. I'm going to use that. Chase, anything to add to what they said?
No, I mean, I think they both kind of hit the nail on the head. For me, my undergrad degree was in exercise science, to which I've literally never used it. I went directly into business after that, and then always kind of felt behind. And so for me, I luckily I had great mentors in the first couple companies I was at. But basically what they told me was like, hey, if you want to continue to progress, like you can do it, but either you should go into consulting or you should get your MBA. And for me, I love what I'm doing right now. So the decision was to get my MBA, to really just get the fundamentals that I didn't get in my undergrad when it came to business.
Right. Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about the programs that you each chose. 3 great schools, Michigan, Lehigh, and Santa Clara. What would you say was the key factor that made you say, yes, this is the program for me? Marissa.
So for Michigan, it boiled down really to 3 things for me. First, I was looking for a collaborative and not a cutthroat culture. The cutthroat thing did not appeal to me. I still wanted a school with an edge and, that was rigorous and demanding, but I wanted a culture that was more collaborative. I also wanted a school where I could, boost my leadership skills. So Michigan has great resources in that regard in terms of the Sanger Leadership Center. That's baked into some of our coursework in the Online MBA, but then you can also take advantage of through other Sanger programming. And then the last thing that really stood out to me about Ross was the emphasis on action-based learning. So I didn't want to just learn theory or, read about certain things. I wanted to put it into practice. And we get to do that again through certain coursework at Ross, like the Leadership Crisis Challenge. And then every student that goes through Ross does a MAP project, multidisciplinary action project. Essentially, it's a consulting project for the summer. So this past summer, I got to work with Uber Eats in their Latin America division. So that was the other deciding factor for me in choosing Ross.
Great. Okay. Shailesh, what drove you to Lehigh?
So, personally, the Flex MBA program, the flexible nature of it was the number 1 criteria for me. I could choose to go into class or stay online as I needed. But going into the program, there were multiple concentrations that were being offered, the international business, finance, and supply chain, and so on. Personally, when I went into the program, I was like, I got to do international business, right? And I went in, took the first couple of courses, my mindset changed, I think, somewhere along the way, where I was like, the way I was learning, the way I was absorbing things, I kind of realized that this was an opportunity, once in a lifetime opportunity. And I could make it a couple of times, but once in a lifetime opportunity to really close the gaps that I have in my professional profile. So that was when I just pivoted away from doing a concentration, and I decided to kind of take skill building courses. So basically, there's core courses and the electives, and all my electives were just, I cherry picked what I felt was going to help me close those gaps. I do like negotiation, like leadership, and corporate finance, consulting, and so on. So I took those courses very strategically to try and fill those gaps. That was my approach. On the other hand, I had friends, teammates who stuck to the original plan, and they got a lot out of it.
Okay. Chase, what about you? Why did you choose your program?
So I applied to a number of places. I had this conversation with one of my classmates the other day. I applied to a number of schools, but for me, it was kind of always Santa Clara. Like that was all, like the other schools were just always the backup options in case Santa Clara didn't want me. But it really came down to the fact that without Santa, like sounding like one of Santa Clara's like promotional videos, like we're in the heart of Silicon Valley, and that's where my entire career has been with early stage startups in San Francisco, Silicon Valley. And so just to get the opportunity that Santa Clara offered of, constantly engaging with VCs or other entrepreneurs, people who have started their own business, like to me, like that's where I want to be. And it really just, the program speaks to, my work career, where I've been and, where I want to be. So, and to be honest, it hasn't disappointed.
Great, glad to hear that. So let's get into the experience itself. So folks who are watching or who will watch this, they might be thinking, what is an online program really like? What are the classes like? How do you interact with your professors, with your classmates in a virtual environment? And what are the in-person touch points if that is an opportunity? So Shailesh, let's start with you on that one.
I mean, so the class environment, honestly, was exactly like this, right? I mean, all of us were in little videos, interacting with each other, raising our hand, and asking questions. And the professors did a great job of engaging, right? And when they were constantly watching and making sure that they were, filling the gap of not being in person by engaging us actively during class. But if because of the flex program, like I said, half our class was online, half of us were in class. So we were in class with the TV behind us, when all the pictures, all of them taking the class with us. Mm-hmm. And so it actually made it very interesting because you could see actually a couple of them like at airports and and in Ubers, and trying to still like connect with the class, ask questions, and so it was a good experience. Honestly, I mean, this was even pre-pandemic, right? I mean, so the transition from pre-pandemic to the pandemic was an easy one, just simply because all of us were used to these, dual modes of learning.
Mm-hmm. And what about access to your professors, even outside of the class time? What was that like?
So we would just email them. They would just tell us like, hey, reach out to us at any point in time, and we could set some time aside, even on Zoom, with the team, for example, to ask questions, and then they would meet us at sometimes over the weekend. We'd bother them to kind of get in touch and ask questions and so on. And certainly there was pre-pandemic there was an opportunity to go and meet them in person as well.
Right. Okay. Chase, can you share a little bit about the experience, classes, interaction with professors and classmates?
Yeah, absolutely. This was actually probably the thing that I was most worried about going into the program is, everybody says like part of the MBA is really, developing your network and getting to know people and finding your, the other entrepreneur who you want to start a company with. And I was concerned, like, how are we going to do this over Zoom? To be honest, like it's probably been the best part of the program. I probably spend, 50% of my time engaging with, other classmates, whether it be through group projects, just joint study sessions, all of that kind of stuff. I've actually talked to a couple of my classmates about, hey, I have this idea for a company, like, let's just chat about it. Like, not even, we did take an entrepreneurship class, but this is like after that class, right? And then honestly, engaging with the professors I probably spent more time engaging with the professors here than I did 10 years ago during my undergrad, when I was in person and living on campus. They all have set office hours. They all, to be honest, respond to emails at like 2 a.m. when I'm like, why aren't you asleep? But it's been great. Honestly, it's been great.
Okay. Happy to hear that. And what about you, Marissa? Anything different or to add to what your colleagues here have said?
Sure. So I had the same concern. The good thing about Ross's online MBA is you do have 3 residencies where you're required to be on campus. And that first residency was at the end of our fall semester, or I'm sorry, beginning of our first winter semester. And that was a game changer in terms of meeting most of my classmates face to face. So the residencies help. All of our classes are through Zoom. Michigan has a studio that they do the live sessions from. So that helps make it feel more like a classroom experience where the professors can see all of you on one screen. When you answer a question, there's another camera that brings you up in front of the professor. So it's more like a one-on-one interaction. And then similarly, all the professors have been incredibly responsive. When I've gone to campus, they're happy to meet for coffee and catch up, have career conversations, that sort of thing. So I've been overwhelmingly pleasantly surprised by the combination of using Zoom and technology, but also bringing us in person for when it matters and it adds value.
Got it. Great. So let's talk a little bit more about your classmates. When I got my MBA, I was surprised at how much I learned from my classmates. Even I would almost say more so than some of the coursework and whatnot. And we hear that a lot from MBA students. So I'd love to understand, was that your experience? And could you perhaps share an example of something that you learned from a classmate that really stuck with you? Chase, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think it's actually one of the coolest parts about the MBA in general. We obviously learn a lot from reading. We learn a lot from case studies. We learn a lot from our professors. But hearing everybody, from a different industry, and we have people in the food industry, we have people in the farming industry, we have people in, private sector, public sector. And it's when you hear their perspective on, the last 10 years that they have in their, in their, whatever they're doing versus what I do in healthcare. And it's honestly fantastic. And everybody is like-minded in the sense that they're wanting to grow. They have these ideas. And it's been, it's great. What was the second part of your question? One specific example?
Yeah, if you can think of one, something that stuck with you.
I don't have anything off the top of my head. I'm sure it'll pop up in like 5 minutes.
We can always come back.
Yes.
Just raise your hand. What about you, Marissa, in terms of your classmates?
So I think Chase said it perfectly, of like that getting to hear different perspectives in class discussions, or hearing someone else bring up a point that you hadn't considered, or looking at a case study or a situation in a particular way that you hadn't thought of. I don't have a specific example, like a concrete thing that I learned, but I think if you do end up pursuing an MBA, you'll learn that you and your classmates have different strengths and you'll kind of play off of those. So one of my close friends in the program, he works in finance. In our finance project, he can move through Excel a lot faster than I will ever be able to. At the same time, when it came time for our marketing project, we worked together again, and there were things that he came to me asking me questions on that I was able to help him. So it's nice to play off of each other's strengths and learn from one another in that way.
Right. So while that's a great example, I want to actually dig into that a little bit deeper based on something we were talking about before we got started. Your undergrad degree was a non-business, correct, Marissa?
Yes, I majored in psychology, minored in Spanish and journalism.
Great. So I think the perception sometimes with the MBA from people who are non-business, whether it's their experience or their undergraduate degree, there's an apprehension around the quantitative aspect and the analytical aspect of the MBA. So, that was a great example you just gave, your marketing expertise versus your colleagues' finance expertise. Can you talk a little bit about, how that process for you and how you manage that?
Sure. I I won't lie, it is daunting at first. If you are more of the poet than the quant side, you will have several moments at the beginning of your MBA where you go, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. And should I be doing this? Should I be here? I think it just came down to like pure grit and determination. And then also not being afraid to ask for help. So whether it's going to the TA, office hours, asking your classmates, you know, hey, it seems like you understand this. Can you explain it to me in a different way? Yeah, certainly asking for help, but I look at it as like, if I could figure it out and if I could hack it, like as long as you're determined and you have the dedication, you can absolutely figure out accounting and finance and statistics.
Great, thank you. Hopefully you have dispelled that for anyone who's apprehensive. Shailesh, just to kind of round out the original question, anything to add to what your counterpart said about what you learned from your classmates?
No, really, I want to just build further on what they said. You know, the perspectives, because of the diverse backgrounds that people come from, it's amazing how the perspectives at looking at the same exact problem is a completely different perspective of what they were looking at. And you know, that came out in a lot of those team meetings. Folks from M&A thought about it differently than, you know, marketing, than, you know, production folks, and so on. And we had a combination of all of those people who could actually, you know, we could build a better product together. And it actually, one of the things that we learned was that, you know, through this journey really was, it was a really good leadership, you know, example of a leadership. As a leader, you don't want to be the person doing everything. You want to be you want to be able to have a team that is a good sum of all parts. I mean, like, so you know, that was a good example. Like, you know, when we did these projects, that was a fantastic, you know, the collaboration aspect of things really, you know, got emphasized during the program.
Right. Excellent. Thank you. So I think often the MBA, the perception is this is about professional development and professional skills. But were there aspects of your program that you really feel helped you evolve more, you know, personally, in your own personal development beyond the professional skills? Chase, let's hear from you around that.
Yeah. I mean, I think if nothing else, it brought kind of a level of maturity, right? Of seeing people that have, you know, we have people in our program with 20 years of experience, you know, 20 more years than I have, right? And being able to engage with them and learn from them, learn from the professors who have been in the same space. You know, I think that's the biggest thing for me, really, is to see how other people carry themselves. You know, we can obviously learn, you know, all the skills we need in terms of business, but, you know, being able to learn from each other and being able to learn, you know, from our professors of how to, you know, navigate different organizations, navigate different situations. You know, I think it's been honestly probably one of the biggest takeaways from me, you know, from this program.
What about the other two? Anything that really you feel personally that you developed through the program?
I mean, I can tell you that, you know, I took the negotiations class and then negotiated the hell out of all my car deals and my home deals and everything, you know, so I actually literally applied that, right? And then, you know, one of the things I really enjoyed, you know, through the program was, you know, the philosophical thinking around things, right? I mean, like, you know, personally, like, you know, what is legal versus what is ethical? I mean, there's a fantastic, like, we had like hours and hours of discussion on this in class. And again, very different perspectives, right? I mean, and I think it really changed me as a person because it kind of allowed me to, you know, critically think about actions I take day in and day out, not only at work, but outside of work. And you know, I think it really helped me kind of become a better person, really.
Right. Marissa, anything to add?
I would say that I think throughout the MBA, you'll have several moments of introspection. Like it's impossible to do an MBA and not grow as a person. It's an incredibly challenging and demanding experience. As everyone has said, you get exposed to so many different perspectives. So I think it's impossible not to change through the process. And then I would say, similar to something I said earlier, it showed me that I was really up for the challenge. I would never have expected myself to be good at certain quant things just because I hadn't devoted time to it before. And after I answered the last question, I remembered, oh yeah, I'm actually doing a concentration in accounting, which was something that I never thought I would do going into the MBA, like at all. So it definitely changes you for the better.
Great. So let's talk a little nitty gritty. You are working, you're going to school, you've got families, babies, friends, social life. Can you share a little bit about how you manage the balance to maintain your sanity, frankly? And Shailesh, let's start with you.
So going into the program, like I said, I spoke to a lot of folks who had already done it before. The one statement that stuck with me that they made to me was, Shailesh, you're not the one who's doing the MBA, your family is doing the MBA, right? So that really stuck with me because that was the moment I realized that, I had to set, the expectations of the family on how life's going to be once I start the MBA and, make sure that, my wife and I, we were able to kind of make sure, how we're going to divide the work at home and how we're going to try to how I'm going to make time to spend time with the family, while I do 8 to 12 hours of homework outside of class, and so on every week. So really planning that with your family, with my family, was the most important piece. Managing those expectations, setting and managing those expectations, not only with the spouse, but also with the children.
Okay. Chase, new dad.
New dad. The last 8 weeks have been challenging. That's for sure. To be honest, I think I got lucky in the sense that my wife had just gone through her master's program, 2-year master's program. And so we had kind of like gone through all the bumps and bruises of like time management and like, hey, how do we like schedule a date night and all those kind of things. What I will say is that one, like for me, like I have scheduled time where it's like, and luckily I have an office at my house where like I can go in there, close the door, and I mean, I can't hear our son screaming. I hope you guys can't. But when I leave, it's like, then I'm done. I'm not thinking about work. I'm not thinking about, school. And most of the time, not thinking about school. And I just can go spend and devote time to them. And to be honest, I do think that the flexibility of this program has really yielded, a lot of results in being able to manage, the work-life balance. I obviously knew we were going to have a kid in 8 weeks ago. So last quarter, I took 4 classes, which was a lot on top of full-time work, knowing that I was only going to take 1 class this quarter. So having that flexibility to really schedule around major life events has been extremely helpful.
Right. And Marissa, anything to add around work-life balance?
I think it's impossible to achieve like the perfect balance. So just accept that as you go into the process. There will be times when, like Chase said, if you take a heavy course load one semester, I did that last semester. Fall A was not fun with 3 classes, but I knew that and I knew what I was signing up for. So there's an ebb and flow to it. For me personally, I made the decision to go back to school and get my MBA before I get married and have a family. I have plenty of classmates who have gotten engaged, married, had babies in the program, and the flexibility of the program lets them do that and structure it around life events. But for me personally, I wanted to get it out of the way before kids entered the equation.
Okay.
Again, can I make a quick comment on what Marissa said? I think she had a very good point there. Really working with your program manager is a very important part of your process. Just speaking to them, understanding what the course loads look like, pairing courses appropriately so that you're not burnt out taking tough courses at the same time. And the second thing is that, life events are happening, work, family, everything around the MBA. There are times, and we're all driven people, right? We're people who showed up to learn, driven. We want to, push ourselves to do more. during this time, it's very important to listen to yourself. Listen to yourself and be kind to yourself. Like if there's sometimes you just have to say, this is good enough, and I'm going to just do this much only, right? Because we don't want to push ourselves too much and then, you know, have other side effects that you don't want. So both on personal and professional front. So as you go through the program, be kind with yourself, right? And just kind of make sure you manage the course load. Ask people, speak to your program coordinator. We had a fantastic program coordinator at Lehigh, Megan, and I think a lot of us kept our sanity because of her.
Sometimes done is better than perfect.
Yes, Marisa.
Often. So we are getting towards the end of our time here. And you're obviously all great ambassadors for your school. So what I'd love to ask you is for you to share with the folks watching, why your school? Why should they consider Michigan, Lehigh, or Santa Clara? What are the hallmarks of the experience that you've had that you would say, this is why you should think about my school? And we'll start with you, Marisa.
So I don't want to repeat myself, but I think it goes back to those 3 reasons why I chose Ross in the first place. I was very pleasantly surprised at how welcoming it was. Granted, I was in the first cohort, entering the Online MBA, which actually I'm realizing this is a nice full circle moment because I learned about the Online MBA through Poets and Quants. So yeah. But I had no current students to talk to. I couldn't sit in on a class. It was a brand new program, but the university went out of their way to have me talk to the assistant dean, a weekend student, answer any question that they possibly could to make me feel welcome. And out of the 3 schools that I got into and had to choose from, Michigan made me feel the most welcome, and it just felt like the right fit. And then also the emphasis on leadership skills, I can't say that enough, is just huge at Michigan. In the Online MBA, you will do an entire leadership residency with a crisis challenge. It's very intense, but it's an incredible experience. And then you can also take advantage of Sanger programming. So last year, for instance, I was accepted as a Ross Leaders Academy Fellow. And that was huge in just learning about who I am as a leader, both in my personal and professional life, where my strengths are, where my weaknesses are. It was just a phenomenal opportunity. So if anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer them about Michigan. Reach out to me via email after, but go blue.
Shailesh, how about you? Why Lehigh?
So for me personally, you know, I actually live very close to Lehigh University, which allowed me to really, I would say, maximize the flex program that we have at Lehigh. I could go in when I want, I could stay online when I wanted, right? I mean, and that really allowed me to balance my learning style and, you know, balance my personal life as well. The quality of the program is fantastic. I mean, you know, the quality of the people, like the students who've come into the program was fantastic. I learned pretty much from all of them, you know, and that it played a role in really rounding me as a professional and a person as well. You know, and some the professors that, you know, just like Marisa said, I mean, you know, the professors there, you know, it's a very cooperative atmosphere, you know, in the sense that they understand you are a working professional. They understand, you know, you have your challenges, and they work with you to allow you to kind of, they work with you on the pace that you want to take in the program. And I think that was really good for me, and it really helped a lot of my classmates as well. Besides that, you know, just a fantastic school, you know, great reputation, and just love the people in the program.
Right. And Chase, why should folks think about Santa Clara?
I think it's actually pretty similar to what Marisa said. There's a huge emphasis on kind of the personal and professional development that really started for us. You know, our residency program was the weekend before we started class. And it's probably like the most introspective I've ever had to be, like, in my whole life. to really understand, who I am as a person, who I am as an employee, as a leader, and how do I really get to where I want to be. And honestly, like I came away from that being like, all right, if the rest of the program is like that, like I'm in really good hands here. So I just think right out of the gate, it's a great experience. The second one really is the collaboration that we have with our classmates, with our professors, who are so like-minded, and we have a very well-rounded program that I've honestly loved every single class that I've taken, which from my undergrad experience that was definitely not the case. And I think, let's see, the third one, I think it really does. It's why I chose Santa Clara. It really they really promote this heart of Silicon Valley. Being able to be just in the midst of like everything exciting that's happening, and from our accounting class to different finance classes to our entrepreneurship class to we had a class called Doing Business in Silicon Valley. It's been bringing in outside resources, people that are pretty big in the community to actually speak with us, engage with us, that I just don't know if you get necessarily in other programs. Maybe you do. This is the only MBA that I've done, right? But it's been just a wonderful experience.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. The three of you have been fantastic in sharing your experience and your insights, and we really appreciate you taking the time to do that. And Marissa, love that full circle story around Poets and Quants. It's great. So thank you again. Thanks to all of you for watching, and we appreciate you joining us, and have a good rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Thank you.